This is the fourth day of the July 94 7-day retreat in Springwater. There are two things worth talking about this morning. Several people have mentioned similar things about feelings. I'm afraid if I were detached, I would have no more feelings like a human being normally does. One person relating an incident on the highway, pulling over because of someone tailgating her, person closely passing by and giving her the finger, and she being all upset. My God, what did I do wrong? This wasn't the only feeling. She said there was a depth of feelings, and then the thought of Toni in the head saying, in awareness, there are no feelings. Or something like that. I'm not reporting it verbatim. Feeling deeply and yet not wanting to look at it, maybe because one thinks one oughtn't be moved by feelings. These are, when I report a case, it may be a combination of several people saying things. So are feelings incompatible with awareness, with seeing clearly? And another question, which may be related to this, we'll find out as the talk unfolds. I used to meditate in a structured environment, knew what to do at any time of the day, and with that went a feeling of not just knowing what to do, but the security of doing the right thing. Finding myself in an unstructured environment, I have to decide lots of times during the day what to do, whether to go for a walk or do a sitting. And with that unstructured freedom to choose what to do comes the doubt, am I doing the right thing? And then maybe if one again remembers words spoken in a talk, the additional thoughts will come. I shouldn't think of right and wrong. Again, I've done the wrong thing by thinking of the right thing. We were talking about this in a group, and one person said, is this what this whole process is, seeing piecemeal, thing after thing after thing, always seeing something? A little bit of this and a little bit of that, and the judgment of that. And can this process ever come to an end? Or is it endless? Maybe we'll start with the last thing first. It's closest right now. The desire or yearning in all of us for security. And it is, if we have ever experienced it, and some of us, maybe many of us, have the security of the child, doing what the parent says is right, then there's approval and a smile, maybe praise, a reward, and learning very quickly what is wrong through punishment, pain of either physical pain or being sent to one's room, abandonment, even if it is temporary, of the parents or mothers or elders, affection. So this is somewhere in all of us laid down as a pattern, needing to do right and afraid of doing wrong, and yearning that security that comes with doing right, and dreading the insecurity that goes with having done wrong. Which is how we have been programmed into life, with reward and punishment, praise and blame, right and wrong. Affection versus withdrawal, abandonment, and all the other things that go with praise and blame. And the brain itself seems to have evolved that function of protecting the organism from danger, pain, fear. Protecting it by looking out, as it were, for what is right and wrong. I realize some of us have not been raised this way, but I can never say everything. So we're just talking about this seeming fragment. Sometimes if one looks completely, totally at a fragment, there's wholeness. The wholeness of looking completely. So the brain has the function to ask, am I doing right? Am I doing wrong? Which either, if it can be answered in the affirmative, ceases the tension of doubt that I might have done wrong, or it increases the tension of doubt and fear. I've done wrong. That's when one can become aware of the brain checking in, as it were. I remember the first time this became clear to me was when I was still sitting at a Zen center. It was a free sitting, didn't have to do any particular exercise. Happened in the evening after hours when I was very quiet. And noticing, after a while, becoming aware that there was an almost rhythmic checking in. Am I doing right? Am I all right? Am I okay? Are things going all right? What am I doing? This kind of asking oneself for feeling secure. I'm doing all right. Things are all right. No danger. And noticing the repetitiveness of this coming to the thought of, am I doing right? I wondered whether it had to be that way, whether I had to check in, or there had to be this knowing that I was doing all right. Because before this checked in, there wasn't any knowing whether I was doing right or not. There was just plain whatever. Wind in trees, breathing, sitting, maybe some painting. But not knowing and not concerned with whether it was right or not until this question clocked in. Am I doing all right? And by noticing it, becoming aware of it, and questioning it, whether it was necessary, whether indeed I needed to know whether I was doing right or wrong, the response came, I don't need to know what I'm doing and whether it's right or wrong. It's all right not to know in a particular situation. Don't mention to me now the highway driving. It's not all right not to know. One has to look whether one is doing all right on the right side of the road or the left side, depending on the country. But at this moment, sitting quietly in a very spacious, not knowing it was not necessary to know whether that was right or not. At least this is how it turned out. The clicking in let up. I don't remember now for how long, but it was not needed. Because there was a state which was not in need of the conditioned state of knowing and evaluating oneself, which is something we're carrying around all the time. The program is in the circuit there, in this me circuit. We've often talked about the me circuit, which with all of its past experiences, pains and pleasures, desires and fears, ambitions, hopes, despairs. A state of not knowing is not in need of that conditioned loop. And therefore the energy need not travel in that loop. It gathers in the being without knowing, which is chit, 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 chit. And sweat pouring off the body, breathing, sounds of people moving, or a chair creaking, wind rustling very gently this morning, very little wind. That statement, very little wind, came from a comparison of yesterday when there was a breeze. That remembrance is there, and with that remembrance can come the desire, I wish there was more breeze so I would feel more comfortable. There it is. So, the question, is this an endless discovering of little bits of our conditioned behavior? Yes, it is, because there's always conditioned behavior as we live. And if awareness is there and has some strength of energy, then it will discover or point out, light up what is just going on as a conditioned thought and feeling. Because this is how we live most of the time, in thought and feelings and emotions, or denial of emotions and feelings, repressions, inhibitions, or loss of control of inhibitions. This is how we live. And there is endless stuff to be discovered as we move along. And yet, at any one moment, this instant, awareness reveals the whole of conditioning, not all the individual bits. They're not there, but conditioning is seen as a total state of being. Narrow, beset with desire and fear, wanting and hoping and despairing, imagining the future, what will happen to me, and eliciting with that imagination fearful states or joyful states in the body, depending on the kind of thoughts about the future. That's how we live most of the time. caught in that net, entangled in it. The net in which the center is me and mine, the idea and deep sense of it, with all of its feelings of security and insecurity, always one tipping over into the other, back and forth, none of them lasting. Happiness and unhappiness, pleasure and pain. Mostly triggered by imagination, imagery and thought, remembered and anticipated. Because if we directly meet a situation as it arises right now, it doesn't need to be imagined, it can be responded to. And usually it happens in emergency situations, a moment of crisis where the brain functions immediately to arouse energy to meet the crisis or the emergency. Doesn't necessarily bring up all the imagery about what I could do or couldn't do. There's no time for that. At that moment there is not living in idea. There's living in immediacy, and the immediacy of response, which is usually very accurate, very much corresponding to the situation, arising out of it and dealing with it. So, we're leaving this right now, this right and wrong, and moving into the whole question of feeling, which has come up a lot in the course of this retreat. My feelings. Sometimes we feel and think that feelings are something truer than thought. We talk about gut feelings. And if by gut feeling is meant this immediate reaction to a arising situation and seeing it clearly and responding to it clearly, if one calls that a gut reaction or a gut feeling, then in this case, what is the gut? It means not pondering it endlessly and vacillating, should I do this, should I, obsessing about it. But a lot of what we refer to as our gut feelings are just the results of remembrances and expectations and desires. We want something so badly to take place that we talk ourselves into, our thought talks itself into. As a gut feeling, this is going to happen. And what is desired very strongly often does happen, or what is feared a lot also often does happen. There is an interrelationship between everything that happens in our life and our thoughts. Or thoughts, they don't belong to anybody. They just emerge from memory, individual memory and collective memory. There's a new scientific theory out that memories are stored in fields, not even in brains or collective brains, the collectiveness of brains, but that there are memory fields. And why not? There are radio waves which can be intercepted with a little instrument, so why not this incredibly complex brain intercepting thought? Some people train themselves in that way to read other people's thoughts. There's almost no end to training ourselves in psychic powers or having that talent. So, what are feelings? That was one of the last questions in the group meetings, because this feeling thing came up again and again. But I felt something very deeply, and then the thought, maybe I shouldn't feel, or there shouldn't be feeling. If there was awareness, then there wouldn't be all these feelings. And the fear from someone else. If I hear about detached observation and I'm worried that I may become a feelingless person, well, very often we are already feelingless persons, depending on how wrapped up we are in our thoughts and feelings and worries about ourselves. We likened it with a cocoon which is spun and spun around and around with thinking and imagining and feeling about ourselves. Pleasure and worry may wrap us so densely that we don't feel with someone else. We assign fault and blame to others rather than feeling where are they coming from. What made someone else react the way he, she does? To kill someone, torture someone, rape someone. Go to war and enjoy it. Swing a gun smilingly. So could we first of all clarify, if possible, that feelings there are. We're human beings with thoughts triggering feelings, or feelings having been programmed non-verbally before we ever verbalized about it. Happiness and unhappiness, terror or pleasure were programmed in a little baby. The traces, memory traces of it before the words were there. So there can indeed be non-verbal memory. And in addition to an event itself, imprinting itself as a memory in the mind and nervous system, something associated with it that happened in proximity, spatial and temporal proximity of the event, can also trigger the reaction, the pain, the pleasure, the fear. And something happening right now. Feeling angry, somebody driving by, like a person said, it was a jerk driving by, making a threatening or disparaging, obscene gesture, triggers much more than the upset and anger maybe of the moment of the question, what did I do wrong? It was a composite of feelings. But not only what is seen and wondered about this moment, but everything that is associated with that through memory from the past, having been treated unfairly, unjustly, meanly, violently. This person said, I felt violated. It was not the first time one felt violated. The whole childhood life is already the exit from the womb may be a very violent one. The reception at the other end may be violent. I don't mean sadistic, but violent in comparison to a smooth existence without problems, without conflict, with consistency of temperature and food, softness and so forth. So there, one event arousing all kinds of feelings which are a composite of what is aroused now and what is associated from the past. All of it reverberating now. The past doesn't reverberate, it's happening now. Past memories triggered and making themselves felt with what we call feelings. And what are feelings? What are feelings? Something sometimes with the development of modern psychology, there seems to be something sacrosanct about feelings. I have to express my feelings. I have to pay attention to my feelings, or my feelings are not thoughts. That makes me a human being. There's some air about this. I just have a gut feeling about that. I may be wrong. But it's all right to ask, what are feelings? Are we free to do it? Or do we already have an image of what my feelings are? If I have an idea or a protective feeling about my feelings, I will not look freely and interestedly to discover what this is that I call feeling. There's a notion that feeling is something separate from thought. It has a different quality. It has something almost autonomous, self-sufficient. But there is nothing within this organism or outside of this organism that is independent of something else. Can we test that out? Not take it as a dogma. Someone mentioned I don't like places in which there is dogma. I'm not putting it out as dogma. I put it out as something to be examined as we go. Maybe it can't be instantly seen. But is there anything independent which is not dependent on something else in this organism or outside of this organism? That has an independent existence. Because we like to think of ourselves as having an independent existence, separate from each other. And maybe a false assumption, which is our most basic assumption, that we're independent, an independent entity, personality, individual. So, can one let go of the notion that feelings are independent? They arise independently, someone will say. They have nothing to do with thought. Maybe they have to do with memory. And whether a verbal memory triggered the present feeling or not, who knows? The attention may not have been there to catch the memory, verbal or non-verbal, but it is catchable, it's possible that there is inner transparency. So a fleeting memory can be felt to have already connected to feelings. And by feelings we mean what? We separate feelings from emotions, don't we? Or do we? Or is it sort of slurry, blurry? I feel good, we say. I feel ill. Is it a report about the way the organism feels? Is sensed? The way sensations are picked up? Sensations of pleasure, of hunger, sex drive, sadness, grief, anger. I feel angry, we say. So, is anger a feeling? We can also call it an emotion. I don't quite know what the difference is. There may be a difference in the use. In any case, whether feeling or emotion, no matter what triggered it, how it arose, how does it sustain itself? How does an emotion of anger or sadness keep going? Or a feeling of happiness? Does it even keep going? They're usually very fleeting. And then we feel sad because the happiness has ended. And then do we talk to ourselves about the unfortunate thing? I'm no longer happy, now I'm sad. And we talked quite in depth the other day, doing it together, looking at how we talk to ourselves about our state of being. Or repeating in image and word the incident that has happened. The way this driver tailgated me, narrowly missed me, and then made this impertinent gesture. When one can just think about it again, or talk to oneself about it again, and all the feelings are there, or keep going if they haven't abated yet. So can one learn, and with interest, how thinking about it, remembering it, talking in loaded language. We can talk very objectively, or we can talk in loaded language about our experiences. And depending on that, the emotion will increase or decrease, the intensity of what the body does in producing this feeling of anger or sadness. Because these are all organic, glandular, chemical, muscular, cellular manifestations, cooperations. So if one is interested in feelings, what are they? One has to take some time with them. Give some time and energy to exploring. Maybe right on the spot. Some person came here on a Sunday when we had a group discussion. She came from Rochester and she was trying to find this place and she got lost. She got so frustrated with herself over getting lost that she felt she had no choice but to pull over to the side of the road and sit with this frustration. And she reported, we queried together, she reported that in really watching it, being with it, listening to it, it sort of dissolved. And then she had no trouble finding the place. So there's wisdom in when one is really embroiled in emotion to be with it, to give it time and space and interest. The interest will generate the energy to listen to what's happening. Sometimes one may not have the time. May work in an office with a supervisor who keeps watching. Sometimes I hear on television that supervisors are even watching the time one takes out for the toilet. Is that true? On a monitor? Well, one can risk it and go to the toilet. Take time. One has one's four walls around one. No supervisor in there, no monitor yet, I hope. I don't think it would go over in this country. Take time and be with this anger or this confusion, this frustration, resentment. Not just shove it away, because then it does ugly things. Anger or frustration or resentment not listened to spaciously goes underground. The sort of terrorist activity underground. Affecting one's whole mood and state of being. So I think we can already realize and see that attention, awareness, and feelings have an intimate relationship with each other. Without awareness and interest and the energy to look and listen, feelings will go on, or go underground and then go above ground again. worsen, affect the mood, maybe affect the health of the organism. But if there's time and space and interest and energy to listen gently, not this was right or wrong. This is not gentle listening. This is already condemnation or justification. And neither condemnation nor justification allows clarity to look clearly. There has to be bareness, nakedness of what's happening, without shielding it or protecting it, just looking and listening and allowing the whole thing to reveal itself openly for what may have caused it, but certainly for what is sustaining it, because that's happening right now. Thinking some more loaded words which excite the glands and pour out the chemicals. When we already have that thought, maybe it's happening here or there. Wait a minute, the way you put it, it's just like a chemist, as though everything was just chemical. It again sort of violates this feeling that my feelings are sacrosanct. They come from, where do they come from? One that hasn't, very often a person says, I don't know about it, I really don't know. It's not clear, but one doesn't want to touch it, to open it up, to examine it. So, going on to the question, if I were a really detached observer, would I become feelingless? This is maybe what one hears in these talks, just as one hears, for some reason, I don't think I've ever said it, maybe I have. I haven't said to my knowledge that one shouldn't have feelings. Or that if we become aware enough, we will be without feelings. For one thing, this whole speculation of what it will be when we are aware enough is a waste of energy. What are we now? Consumed with speculations about being more aware? Can that come into awareness, then the speculation will collapse. Because there's a cool breeze right now. And a very distant sound of an airplane. Birds singing and heart beating. And breathing right in the middle and right through everything. At the same time. So at this moment, what's the place of speculating about the future? Is that seen for what it is? A movement away from here-ness, now-ness, from beingness? And can one also see that if I speculate right now, or if thought speculates about a state of pure awareness in which I may be devoid of feelings, that causes fear, that causes apprehension, causes a resistance, and maybe the thought, I don't want that state of awareness. First, thought pictures it in an unrealistic way, and then it says, I don't want that. As though it was dealing with realities and not seeing it's just dealing with its own productions. Do you see that? So is there awareness right now? An open listening with no investment in it. Not becoming anything with that. On the contrary, in this open listening, I'm not even there. There's a live organism and everything alive, rounded inside and out. You could say in that there's a feeling of what? Sweatiness, well-being. These are words. But there's no conflict right now. So the organism is, we could say in words, in balance. Now, a thought can be evoked about an incident when I was hurt. We can do that. It's possible. There's awareness there, openness is there, listening to birds and the breeze, the breathing is there. Possible to evoke the remembrance of an incident where I was hurt and look at it. Look at the memory of it. It need not destroy the awareness of this moment. That's what's happening in talks all the time. There's awareness, and yet memory is free to furnish an example of having been hurt, because that's what we're looking at feelings. And in fact, memory is furnishing an example. And thought and words are about to relate it. When I was home, was a little girl in Germany, growing up there. I had a cold or a flu. And when we were sick, we had to stay in bed. There was no such thing as walking around. So it was not allowed. You had to be in bed because you were sick, out of school. And I thought my parents were gone, but we had a maid with whom I was very intimate. I loved her. I loved being with her. And she was dusting the living or dining room. There was the dining room. I can see it, memory, but awareness is there. The birds are there. So I snuck out of bed, and she furnished me with a dusting cloth, and we dusted together. But my father had not left. He was still there. I have a very gentle father, at least in his ways with me. He didn't shout, he didn't blame me, he didn't hit me. He just took me, put his hand on my head and directed the head toward the bedroom. And what was underneath the head walked. Walked toward that bedroom in utter shame and humiliation and pain. So much so that I remember it to this day. So today, if there's no awareness like there is right now, I can laugh at it right now. It doesn't hurt. I don't feel the pain. I just remember that I felt pain. But this body is not mobilizing anything. It's feeling just as it did before. Maybe a little wetter. So, after that, if there is not this ease of attention which is there right now, if someone talks to me sort of down from up in a humiliating or disrespectful way, I found this out by now, this incident and many others following it reverberates with outrage or whatever the feelings are. And depending on how quickly it's seen what is going on, the feelings will dissipate again. If it's not seen, the commentary, the storyline will see to it that it continues for a while. Or who knows for how long. We seem to have a almost perverse pleasure in feeling bad about ourselves or others. Maybe lacking any other stimulation, that's the best we can do. It's called negativity. But it's just, it could be positive thoughts getting the organism going. It's a little bit more pleasant be around a person who is addicted to positively thinking about himself or herself. But it's the same coin, two sides. Thought used to keep the organism stimulated to feeling, one way or another. Now, as to feeling of sadness, I think we devoted a part of a talk to that, grief, fear of abandonment, or the pain of loss. Is that the thought that if I was aware I would not be a grieving human being anymore, a sad human being, I would be like stone or a robot? That's again speculation, isn't it? Test it out and see. When there's sadness and loss and grief, can one also look what is going on and be attentive? Not in a judgmental way, but to be fully with what's there, to understand it thoroughly, all the way. How it is aroused, how it maintains itself, how it is supported, what it craves, the support of others. It's not so judgmentally. It happens so for human beings. And awareness, which sheds light, is not a feeling. It's not feeling. It's light, it's awareness, it's clarity. Not separate from anything that appears in it, not separate or condemning or clutching what's there. Just revealing it clearly. Ending the confusion of this shouldn't be like this, it should be otherwise. It's what it is, that's clear. No confusion needed. And if you say, what about love? Someone said this, your talks are very heady, they make me stay in my head and intellectualize. But this depends on how one listens. Is one only listening with the head, with intellect, trying to understand the words and relate them to other words, or is there some opening up to what goes on in this human being, which we are, all of us? We are each other's feelings and mechanisms, arousal, support, and also we are one awareness when it's there. It's not your awareness and my awareness. And the amazing thing is that in this awareness which has no feelings but illumines them, there is such a thing as love and compassion with all that goes on. Not condemnation, not clutching, but compassion. Passion with the whole thing, but not in a feeling sort of way which needs to be supported by thought and memory. It's here in this moment. We will end here for today.